Hey Australia, you're listening to Mind Over Money. I'm Lachy Nicolson. Today we're talking about managing investment properties. We're going to hear some DIY horror stories and reasons why it's best to get a professional to manage your investment. Let's go. Jack Patterson, the man, the legend. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Lachy. It's great to be here.
Yeah. You're part of the Housemark team, an award-winning property management firm with offices across southeast Queensland. For those who don't know, tell us a bit about Housemark for a minute. Who do you help? Why would someone work with a property management specialist?
Yeah, so Housemark is a specialist property management business servicing the whole of southeast Queensland. So unlike the majority of other property management rent roles that are typically set up within a real estate sales office, we specialise in residential property management. So we've actually only been around about 6 years. So from humble beginnings, our managing director, Jonathan Bell, founded our business in his second bedroom 6 years ago. And we've now grown organically from zero to just under 3,000 managements within that timeframe. So a really, really big company. We help all different types of property investors. So obviously people who it's their first time. And just as an example, last month I actually onboarded a client with 22 investment properties. So seasoned professional to say the least.
Oh, wow.
So people like to work with Housemark. We believe that the cookie cutter approach doesn't work with a lot of clients. And we like to provide a tailored package specific to our clients' needs and what they're looking for in a property management service. So that's a little bit about us.
Yeah, because there's a few property management companies around and just from what I've seen, a lot of them do offer a kind of subpar cookie cutter experience. And I think it's that reason that you just mentioned. A lot of them are real estate agencies and they've tacked on this extra department called property management. And they just seem to throw in whoever, all the juniors who probably just want to be sales agents, not property managers. And so you get this, lack of experience or just people who don't want to be there. And that results into just a bad experience for the client, the person they spent all this money getting this investment property and they want someone professional to manage it well without having it being a big drama. So I have noticed, because we have sent clients your way and they're very happy. So you're obviously bucking the trend, disrupting the waters a bit in the property management industry. What do you think that you guys are doing that's different to the rest?
Look, historically, property management has been an industry that's undervalued, underqualified. Property managers are undertrained.
Yeah, I agree.
Typically set up by selling principals, as you said. You hit the nail on the head within a sales business. Trying to cover running costs of their business or build an asset to fund retirement. So we're the complete opposite to that. What we've tried to do is build a business where we aren't just a rent collection agency. We don't just call our clients, when there's an issue with a leaking tap or minor handyman maintenance, which the majority of businesses do. We genuinely care about our clients and their investment journey. And we're there to support them to make sure they reach their investment objectives along the way. And it's exactly what you said. A lot of people want to get into the real estate industry. So they come in and they say, let's do property management, put you into property management for 6 months, and then we'll give you a job as a sales associate. So the average tenure for a property manager in Queensland is actually 8 months. Oh, wow. Very, very, very low. The service levels are very low. It's hard to obviously build rapport with your client or understand their investment property within 8 months. So part of what we do is we're recruiting property managers where they're treating the role as a career rather than a job.
Yeah, I like that. Treating it as a career. So you're attracting good people who want to work in property management and do a good job. Okay, let's talk about investment properties. Just about everyone I know has said at one point or another over a barbecue, I want to get an investment property. Now, seldom few actually follow through on that past the barbecue chat. But for those who do end up purchasing an investment property, I've noticed they kind of fall into these two groups post-purchase. There's this one group, they try to do everything themselves, and often they just create this big mess and drama, and then a couple of years down the track, they just sell the property because it's just too much drama, too much frustration, and that property doesn't achieve its objectives. They don't achieve their investment objectives. But then you got the other group of people who, the moment it settles, they get a good property manager, and you never hear about that property ever again because it's in the background. It's just doing what it should be doing. The owner isn't touching it. They're not fiddling with it. I think you know both these groups really well because you see this day in, day out. Why is it like as Aussies, we think it's a good idea to manage our own investment properties, which it clearly isn't. We spend so much money on fees to acquire the property. Hopefully we acquire a good one, only to then kind of skimp and save on the most important part, which is the ongoing management of the property. Like, what is going on here? What do you think the true long-term cost is of a poorly managed investment property, mostly because people try to do it themselves?
Yeah, I think you're right, Lachy. A lot of Aussies do like to do it themselves. The reasoning behind it, in my opinion, is obviously, I believe it's probably a costing with investments. People are trying to maximize the yield and minimize costs, which is understandable. But I've seen it many times before with people trying to self-manage and it goes pear-shaped. And essentially, rather than being able to build, generational wealth, it becomes a horrible experience. And then sometimes they end up selling the property and going to invest their money into shares or crypto or something like that and think, I'm never going to do this again. So it's absolutely a fundamental part of your investment journey is appointing a property manager that knows what they're doing and can be there to support you throughout that process.
Because there's the cost of like the financial cost you think you might be saving. Sometimes it can actually cost you more long term because you're not getting the best yield out of that property if it's not being properly managed. But also you've got the hassle, convenience, just the general annoyance of trying to do it yourself. And people often say they get into property because they want passive income, not to be managing tenants, council, everything that comes with an investment property.
Yeah, and people don't often understand the work that's actually involved. I had a recent client where a tenant had vacated and abandoned the property and he went to apply to QCAT and was found unsuccessful. So he had like 6 to 8 weeks of loss in rent. All the damages that were to the property was going to cost $15,000 to $20,000 to repair. And I said to him, did you actually think about this in initial stage in the onboarding of the tenant? Did you have the right insurance cover? Had you spoken to a company like Barclays that can do debt collection and stuff like that? So I hear a lot of property managers in the industry say that if a property was abandoned, I will just apply to QCAT. A lot of people don't actually understand. You can apply to QCAT, and yes, you can get a QCAT order for claims over and above the bond. That's all well and good. But from there, QCAT don't actually go and recover the money for you. But you still need to have those accessories there and in place. So that's part of the onboarding process that we discuss with our clients to make sure that in the case that something like that did happen, we can be there to support them and make sure everything's recovered.
What other changes? I mean, hopefully that never happens. That's obviously the worst case scenario with a property. What other changes financially, mentally, and with your investment can take place when you work with a good property manager? What do you think actually separates the good from the great when it comes to property management?
The big one that stands out is maximizing the rental yield. Our job is always to maximize that for our clients. With the new legislation change last year, limiting rental increases to once every 12 months, what we always recommend is coming in to the highest end of the appraisal amount. If the interest is low, we can always do a price reduction, which would be unlikely in this market. The other thing is obviously having the properties prepared really well to hit the market and be presented well and be compliant and ready for a tenant to move in, which will essentially reduce the vacancy period and shorten obviously the loss in rent. Compliance,
you hit that. I mean, do people even really know what's required to make a property compliant? Because the rules are changing all the time. So I'd imagine a property manager can keep up with how that property needs to be improved over time to ensure that it is compliant with the latest rules and regs.
Yeah, exactly. So we had the minimum housing standards last year come into effect. So every property has to have window coverings on every window and locks on windows and locks on doors. And tenants are essentially able to break their lease and vacate if the property doesn't meet the minimum housing standards. But from a legislative perspective, pretty much over the last 4 years, we've had the rental reforms coming through each year. If you don't have a trusted advisor to walk you through what you can and can't do, it's very ambiguous. And beyond the legislation and the numbers on how we can help our clients, it's obviously the Housemark's been built off a landlord-centric approach. We're always trying to find a solution in a problem-based industry. Our senior property managers are always contactable via their mobile phone, and we guarantee a same-day turnaround. Often you find within an industry where a lot of property managers are overwhelmed with the amount of work they have to do, we find that the work is delegated. So our senior property managers are essentially client relationship managers, where they're there to be contacted by the clients at any time and be there to be that support network and help them through their investment journey.
Yeah, that's great. What kind of properties do you manage across Queensland?
Yeah, so over 2,000 of our rentals are actually throughout the Brisbane location. The majority of properties we have are standard residential houses and units. Me personally, my core focus is Brisbane City and surrounding areas. So really focusing in on houses and new builds sort of around the inner north of it because I live in this area. So the 4007 Hamilton, Ascot, Hendra. So that's my core focus.
And you've got offices across Southeast Queensland. So I imagine you guys have team members around the place looking after their local areas.
We do, yeah. So Jordan Slinger is our associate director. He runs our Sunshine Coast office, and then we have Nick DeRosa down on the Gold Coast. His main office is in Bundall. He's another associate director, and then our main office, which I work out of in New Farm at 76 Murtha Road.
So someone's purchased an investment property and they're going, okay, I need to find an investment property manager. I'm not going to do it myself. What questions do you think investors, should be asking to find a good property manager to kind of, separate the wheat from the chaff, as we've been talking about, the good from the great? Yeah,
look, I think, in my opinion, the majority of BDMs in the real estate industry would go into a pitch and they all say the same thing, right? They say, we'll get you the best tenant, we've got the lowest arrears, we've got the lowest vacancy periods. I think to come in and, cut the BS and commission breadth, it'd be more asking questions like, how can you help me? How are you going to help me reach my investment objectives over the next 5, 10, 15 years? Because obviously in real estate sales, it can be a little bit transactional. In property management, it's a long-term relationship. You need to look at it from a holistic view. Can I work with this person for the next 15 years? So it'd be more so coming in with those questions.
Maybe even asking them what their process is too. So aircon dies, what happens? Do I get notified? How do they communicate with me? I imagine it just really comes down to good systems and processes and communication from the property manager's side so that it's really seamless for the investor to just get a simple alert, hey, this needs to be done by this date. Would you like us to action it? Or maybe we have actioned it on your behalf, depending on the rules that you've set up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another key point I would put forward as well. Discuss their processes with maintenance. We've reviewed the work that our senior property managers do and believe it's over 80% of their time is spent doing maintenance. What's their follow-up process? How do they handle maintenance? So they just forwarding quotes onto owners without actually reviewing these and understanding what needs to be done. So looking at it from a holistic view, finding out if they can build a relationship with the property manager and their internal processes as well.
Yeah, that's a big one because that's what I noticed that you guys have really honed in on is your processes. And there's nothing worse than just getting like some email forwarded to you that hasn't got any context put behind it. And so I guess when you're an investor, you're paying for that team to help make things easy and do things properly. So good processes and communication is the key. So something to question property managers on when you're trying to figure out who to work with. Walk us through the process working with you. So someone picks up the phone, calls Housemark. What happens? Step 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So look, Lachy, the process is a little bit different for each client and where they're up to. So if they've just purchased a property and it's pre-settlement, which is, in my opinion, is the best time to get in contact with someone like myself. What I recommend before pre-settlement, before going unconditional, reach out. We can have a chat, run through some options. Once we have a management agreement in this time, we can potentially negotiate into the sale contract some pre-settlement access where we can do some open for inspections and essentially have a tenant ready to move in upon settlement, which will generate the rental income for you straight away and reduce the vacancy period. The other option as well, obviously, if it's a tenanted takeover, simple phone call or email, happy to reach out and have a chat with anyone. And it's essentially a 2-step process that you sign the management agreement and we take care of the rest for you. So it's very, very simple.
What are some war stories that you've heard recently, or maybe some good wins from some of your clients? Because you'd see it all, mate. You'd see it all, good and bad.
Exactly. I've seen some pretty hairy ones, unfortunately. There's a bit of bad stigma around the industry with property managers, and the average property manager at a barbecue is probably just referring to themselves, I'm just a property manager. I work in real estate, but I'm just a property manager. But they're actually managing an asset pool of, $200 to $300 million. So you must hold yourself with the utmost integrity at all times and honesty. You find, you're dealing with very emotional people. You deal with, family separation. You deal with divorce. You deal with death sometimes as well. So,
and both on the tenant side and the investor side, so there's a lot of compassion and grace that needs to go into, and good communication skills.
Exactly. So, I've seen, unfortunately, some deaths in properties. I've been to routine inspections and found elderly people who are unconscious. I've been to warrant of possessions with the police where we've had to go to a property with a locksmith and the police to remove someone and their furniture who's been arrested. QCAT hearings and stuff like that. So there has been some ugly ones, but it's all part of the industry, and we absolutely love it, and we're really passionate about it.
Well, I mean, you would not want to do that yourself, because I think people, they are leaving a lot to risk when they get an investment property, try to manage it themselves. Yeah, you could get a good client, but you also could get one of those examples that you just talked about. And the worst thing would be to be doing that on your own and trying to figure that out. So yeah, I think working with a professional is so key, and love hearing your passion for this. Like, it is rare in this industry. So I think that's what's just made you guys such a standout for us, but also clearly for the people that are working with you guys, and a great award-winning team. So mate, really stoked that you're part of our community, and that we've already sent some people your way and they're getting great results so far, managing their investment properties. I just want to reiterate, you've spent all this money to buy this investment property. Don't skimp on the ongoing management, because you could be undoing all the good work you did by getting a good property at a good price with your broker, with your financial coach, with your solicitor. Everything can go well. But if you don't manage it ongoing, you are slowly losing money over time, and that property is not going to achieve the goals that you set out for it. All right, let's wrap it up there. Hey, thank you, Jack, for sharing your insights. You can speak to Jack Patterson and the Housemark team at housemark.com.au. They'll look after you and your investment property. We're glad to have them in our community. Thanks, Jack.
Thanks for having me, Lachy. Absolutely loved it.
We'll be back soon again with Archie, Tim, and friends. Thanks as always for listening to Mind Over Money. Follow us wherever you're listening and share this with a friend. Bye for now.